times. And it explains the rules we operate under and how you can participate if you want to, or provide evidence if you want to. So if you're curious about the process, listen now. At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrative decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. What that means is that we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that because we're on the record, this is your opportunity to comment on and provide evidence relating to an application. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, that court will not take or consider new testimony or evidence at its hearing. It will look at the evidence from this hearing, the regulations or applicable law, and determine if the evidence supports the decision of this board. Only interested people that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by this board, so I strongly encourage all of you to speak up at this hearing. Because we're on the record, I'm going to ask that anybody who speaks be sworn in. So if anybody thinks that there's even the smallest possibility that they're going to speak on any application, I'd ask that you raise your right hand and I'm going to swear you in as a group right now. Or you can stand. Should I make people stand? And if you change your mind, you need to tell me that I've not sworn you in so that I swear you in. Do you hereby swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in the cause under consideration will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury?
Yes.
Okay. So again, if you haven't been sworn in and you decide you want to speak, come up and tell me that you haven't been sworn in. I'll just swear you in then, and you can give testimony just like anybody else. Applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed, which means 4 votes out of 7. As you can see, we have 6 people here tonight. Our 7th member, Maya Hasegawa, couldn't make it tonight, but she's going to watch a video of the proceeding. So if it comes down to that 1 vote, there will in fact be 7 voters. If for some reason you have a problem with that arrangement, we'll consider, but not necessarily grant, a request to continue the application. After taking testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on an application, it is the written decision that controls the timeline for an appeal. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town has no special status before this board. Documents provided to our board by the town planning department, town attorney, or any other town department are considered in exactly the same way as information from the applicant or any other interested parties. Mr. Bannon, has our meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it has.
Okay. The first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from our meeting of February 21st.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'll note that there was a typographical error for Todd Murchison's name, and I understand that the final draft will have 2 Ds rather than 1 D. That's right, Grant? But otherwise, it will be unchanged.
I don't care, but it's a legal deal.
Should be right. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Does anybody have any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications to disclose? No? Okay. The first item on the agenda is application 2018-4. Just in case there were people for the hospital can come up to the table. I'm just going to explain the history here. In case there's anybody here who was not at our meeting last time, this is a continuation of a prior hearing. These representatives for the hospital and the company that's doing their development gave a presentation, and we learned at the last meeting that a couple of materials that the applicant had provided, a sound study and a traffic study, had not been made available to the public as they should have been. And so, and members of the public came and raised issues having to do with traffic and sound. So, as I understand it, those materials are now available, were made available after that meeting.
They were made available and posted to the website.
Made available and posted to the website. And So we've reconvened here, although a great deal of testimony has already been given by the applicant and the interested parties. Is there any other procedural thing that I'm failing to mention, Brian? Okay. So, in my view, it's not necessary for the applicant to go through the original presentation a second time. However, you heard some of the public comments, and I don't know, but I assume that you may have additional testimony or exhibits you might want to offer first before we go back to public comment. And so I'd like to open the door for you guys to do that before we continue with members of the public. And just because someone could be watching on TV who didn't watch the prior hearing, if you could still say your name, even though obviously we all know who each other is.
So when we do that, we'll just go through first. I'm Brad Sanderson with Stevens and Associates.
Serenity Wolf with Stevens and Associates.
Rob Prohaska with Brattleboro Memorial Hospital.
And Steve Cummings from Brattleboro Memorial Hospital.
Just to say, we actually made sure that the town now has those. I mean, they had them before, but I think they've been on under file at this point in paper copies so that the abutters can read it. I don't know that they're really. I think there's additional testimony that's coming in from them. I think it probably makes more sense unless you disagree to hear that testimony to start with.
That's fine with me.
Yep.
Do any members of the board have any questions for the applicants before we open it up to public comment?
No, I watched it.
Not
Okay.
this time.
Okay. And both of you watched the tape, correct?
Yes, correct.
So just in case anybody was here last time and they're wondering why there are different faces, these are other members of the DRB who watched the first hearing and now are ready to vote. So members of the public, if you want to speak, you must have been sworn in, and please say who you are when you come up to the microphone here so that the people watching on television can follow along. Any members of the public who came to speak to this application? Yes. If you could approach the microphone. Oh, I understand there's an issue here. You don't want to appear on the videotape. Fred, thank you. So the camera's on us. We won't be on television.
Okay, I'm in a butter of the property on Maple Street. A lot of words here, so I sent you ahead of time. I'm trying to decipher at the moment what I should go through. Has everyone read what was sent?
I have two different drafts,
No.
and I reviewed the one draft which commented on construction, in particular the noise and timing of construction.
One says existing noise.
At the top?
You see this?
Here we go.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yes. Okay, yep, I have that one, and I reviewed that one, yes.
Okay.
Is this meant to be
And
the
there's a second one.
one that begins,
You told us?
you have told us?
Yep.
Yes, yes.
So my question for you is everyone read them?
Yes, I had a couple of questions.
Because
And do you mind just so that the people at home or who came and haven't read this, if I just summarize them? Is that okay? You can if you prefer. But
What?
just so they understand what the questions I'm asking you mean in context.
well, I think I should read, but I'll read quickly.
Well, let me ask one question before you start. I understand you're in a butter, you have party status, no problem. Some of the observations in here are phrased as a we, suggesting that it's not necessarily you that observed this, but
Exactly.
other people who you are somewhat speaking for.
Yep.
Do I correctly understand that?
Yes, definitely.
If when you go through this, if you could clarify the things that you yourself observed?
I have my own personal statement.
Okay, that's fine. But if there's stuff in here that you're speaking for somebody else that saw this, if you could also just
The whole
clarify
paper
that as you
is
go
speaking
through.
for somebody else, for several households.
Yes, but some of the things in your letter have been observed by you, or you're speaking for other people exclusively in the written documents?
It's a consensus of thoughts. I happen to be the one that's presenting them.
Okay. I may interrupt you just to ask, did you see this or did somebody else see this from time to time? But if you'd like to read this, that's fine.
So I'll start with the existing noise because it refers often to the noise study. And some of the pages are listed so to make it easy. I'll read through it quickly. Below are existing noise problems that were not addressed in the computer simulation of the RSG noise study. Monitoring of the actual current noise will be needed for after-bill projections. The new noise sources created in this project will be in addition to what we as neighbors currently hear. RSG projects on an unlikely 30 decibels for the total new machinery that will be added to the project. The two previous contested on-site noise studies conducted by RSG were dishonest. Neighbors observed on both occasions that the daily noise capacity was greatly reduced before and during these studies. Not all regularly running machines were turned on at the time. The AC on the boiler room roof, which was the focus of these surveys, was not at its most powerful running. This current study that we were sent home with last week, part of this permit, also conducted by RSG, which is associated with Stevens Associates who work for BMH, is also misleading and flawed. For example, it states that noise levels on Maple Street are only 31 decibels. This is only 1 to 2 decibels different than Highland, Lexington, and Ledgewood Heights. You can see page 19, the map, page 19 in the noise study. Fairview Village is only 3 points difference at 28 decibels. This is an unlikely actual situation, meaning that these places are quite far away, and yet we all have the same readings in the study of approximately 30-31 decibels. A possibility for the inaccuracy could be the noise specifications of the machinery. A possibility for the inaccuracy could be the noise specifications of the machinery were not actually entered into the software model of the study. Or maybe all noise levels are averaged to a lower projection. We do not know. On page 8 of the noise study, it is concluded that the software model suggests that the projected sound levels, a quote says, new equipment for this project will be less than the sound levels from existing equipment measured in May 2016. This is the study that was witnessed by 2 neighbors. Also stated, the projected sound levels are 19 decibels less than the measured sound levels from existing equipment measured in front of Maple Street in 2016. How do we know this information when the May 2016 study was not an actual true measurement? And how do we know this 19 decibels is correct from a simulated software? What are the existing levels that were determined in this study? We do not know. BMH refuses to share this information. It is referred to several times in this permit as Appendix D, and yet we could not find Appendix D in the noise study. Appendix D is this May study. We asked the last time we were here for this study to be made of this study, the May 2016 study, to be made available to neighbors who witnessed it, to all neighbors, but we witnessed it. We also asked BMH many times for their study previous to this one. There have been 2 studies conducted in the neighborhood. We are being refused the right to see this information. Without real existing noise information, this current study for the permit falls apart and becomes invalid. At the bottom of page 10, it states, given this information, this is the RSG sound projection, we have reasonable confidence that the monitoring that will be in the spring, this is a study that is intended for the spring, will be the same as the previous studies, and it will show that the sound levels from the new equipment will be less than existing levels. As we have discussed, the simulated assessment of new sound sources is inaccurate. An unlikely total of 30 decibels for 10 new sources of sound, including large AC units, is unbelievable. We do not have an honest assessment of an existing sound. This is the issue. What we do know is that when all machinery is running in the spring through the fall, it will average about 60 to 65 dBA in our yards and homes. Many times through the years, it has been more, as high as 69 in homes.
Can I interrupt you?
Sure.
I just have a quick question. Did you observe that? Did somebody else?
Yes, we had a decibel reader. This is a time when we called it the jet engine noise. It was a machine in front of the Richards building that apparently just needed a screw or something, a quick fix, but it wasn't repaired for I think it was from March to March.
Okay,
It was horrible.
but eventually the machine was fixed.
It was fixed when Act 250 came to visit the campus
Okay,
the day before, and on that day, many things were fixed.
understood.
This is a fact. Neighbors are intimately aware of noise levels, changes in sound, and new sources. We have been monitoring dBA for BMH for years. We do not do this for fun. We do this because we are so disturbingly affected, and BMH never rectifies the problems. New sound levels will be added to the current levels. However, it is highly unlikely that, see page 17 in the noise study, what appears to be 4 new air conditioning units will be less than the existing ones, especially since they will be cooling such a big building. Projections in the RS simulation, and then it gives them, I won't name them all, are for sound power. They seem quite high. We're not experts on this, but page 11, 5, numbers 2 and 3 of the permit says the units that will be added to the rooftops does not, well, that was for the sound study, sorry. I can't read my own. So those numbers are from page 11, 5J2 in the permit. The units that will be added to the rooftops does not help noise problems as they currently exist. This is information. The units that will be added to the rooftops does not help noise problems as they currently exist. This is information about one of the 2 planned chillers. Quoting, the new chiller will be consistent with the current chiller located on the boiler room roof and is planned to have sound ventilation features. This is a vague statement for a permit. We don't know what those sound buffering features are. It's not listed accurately or specified. Anything can happen here, and if it is minimal and ineffective, this will be in accordance with hospital standards so far. There is no sufficient soundproofing on any machinery on campus now, and there will not be with this permit unless standards are set. Neighbors want to see, as promised, the sound specifications for all new equipment. We were promised this at an informational meeting. We asked for it, and they said they would get back to us, the specifications of the soundproofing for the new equipment. What are the answers to these questions? What is a semi-custom enclosure? What are features that are mentioned? What is sound attenuation? Is it different from soundproofing? Is it different from screening? These are just basic questions that we don't understand in the permit. Changes to the existing outdoor equipment is not planned, we are told. This we have been hearing for years. But the fact is, existing equipment does need to be changed. Act 250 has a mandate that existing equipment needs to be fixed before adding new. There's a major problem of all this new equipment on the roofs. Noise will travel directly across as it does now, and there are at least 10 new machines. On page 3 of the noise study, no, this is page 3 of my reading. Neighbors have requested noise modification for the current AC units for many years because they are so loud. There will be 4 more units added. Also to be added are airflow machinery. The existing airflow units are a continual all-season noise that can be heard loudly in homes and property. During construction, BMH will provide 80 off-site parking spaces for displaced staff and most of the contractors. This is a quote. Where are these 80 off-site parking for staff and contractors? What does this mean? What does this mean? Are they going to be bussed in dragging their equipment? This is important information and not detailed in the permit. It affects the neighborhood. So that's a question we have. Where are these 80 parking spaces? And how will the contractors, will they go to an off-site and then how will they come into our front of our doors almost? Because that's where the site will be. If you approve this permit based on the information you now have in this and previous studies, BMH will have gained this approval on incomplete if not false facts. The committee should wait until the existing conditions study be conducted. This study has to be conducted by an outside source, witnessed by neighbors and on a typical warm day with all machinery running. Below listed are the current noise sources that we hear and which affect the quality of our life. These are the baseline for the permit of this noise study. Mr. Prohaska told us he would give us the manufacturer's specifications for all new machines, and we would like this to happen before this permit is approved. This is very important information. BMH has made a mistake on a previous AC purchase, which turned out to be louder than expected. So it's very important that this information is known to not only the public, but the people that live in the area. I'm not going to go through the, there's a couple pages that mention the conditions and the issues we've had with the existing machines. There are about 10 machines listed here. And because I have another paper to read, I'll go right into the short survey of the traffic study on page 5. The traffic study uses build and no-build scenarios. No-build is the baseline, and build is the addition of project-generated traffic. If you look at the no-build and the build simulations on page 7 through 13, hardly any change is noticed in the current conditions at the Maple and Canal Street intersection. This is an implausible conclusion because Maple Street is going to be the center of a major construction site, and yet there is no record of this data. Incredibly, there is no parking lot egress in the simulated maps or any traffic simulation. It is as if this factor did not exist. If it is intended for use, another study needs to be done and include the egress, because if that's what they're going to be used, it has to be part of the study. It makes sense. Heavy trucks and vehicles will be entering regularly at the intersection of Cherry and Hospital access. Whether the egress is open or not, they're going to be using the egress that is currently a couple cars a day. They're going to be going in there. They're going to have to be smaller trucks because the canopy of the Richards building does not allow large trucks. So that means where are the large trucks going to get into that trailer, which is in the parking lot? But then the egress is not open and the egress is not considered in the study. So how are the trucks going to get to this trailer in this parking lot? It's absolutely absent from the study. If they are only going to use the hospital egress near Cherry Street, then how is that going to happen? On pages 9 and 13 of the simulated study, you can see an average of 0, 1, 3, and 5 vehicles entering and exiting the hospital access in both the build and no-build conditions of the simulated study. No change is noticed for this access, this driveway, for the time period of the construction activity, which is 2 years. The number of vehicles traveling east and west along Maple Street at this intersection does not increase for construction traffic in this study, although I have given to you previously Wyndham regional studies that have a completely different assessment of how many cars are using Maple Street from the east and west parts of Maple Street.
Can I ask you a question about that really quick? I think you're referring to the table that was included, or spreadsheet.
No, she does mention pages 9 through 13, the traffic study.
No, but I'm talking about
The Wyndham regional study is just a little
this
Excel thing.
This, oh, okay, that's what that is.
thing, right?
There should be 2 pages, but I'm not sure if you got 2.
Well, that's okay. What I was just, I wanted to ask you just where this came from, and you said it's a Wyndham Regional study. When was that study?
They're all the times of the years are on there.
So this is a database that you created from a series of different
No, I was
studies?
given it was given to me directly from them. It's, maybe you didn't get the 2 pages? It says the years and it says,
No, I do have something that indicates years, number of days, average speed, and daily average vehicle count, among other things. I was just trying to figure out who recorded the numbers.
it's the Wyndham Regional, the place down on Main Street,
Okay?
right? Aren't they called Wyndham Regional? They do traffic studies in town. They do
That
a
may
lot of
be.
traffic studies in town. They've done traffic studies for us and during the Richards Building.
Okay, anyway, you can continue. Thank you for answering my question.
So what I'm saying is that the 2 studies contrast by a lot of vehicles. Are we expected to believe that vehicles will not be using Hospital Access Road as a second access to the construction site? Construction-associated traffic that will be given a permit of 2 years is not considered in this study that we're all looking at. 2 years construction is a long time. The neighborhood has experienced the construction of the Richards Building, which entailed lots of problems for us. Before you allow this permit, there should be a meeting with the promised information from BMH about specifications and resolve to our concerns put in writing. For example, a pertinent written agreement about how the truck deliveries and construction-related vehicles will maneuver and what times of day, etc. About general construction noise and lighting. Most importantly, an honest traffic study with projected increases in traffic of the intersections on Maple Street, the egress if it's going to be used, and the Cherry Street intersection. The moment we don't have those facts. Very importantly, 11 hours, the part of this permit will allow 11 hours days, if they should so choose. If they're in a hurry to build it, they probably will do that for 2 years. This is a serious issue. It's not just that we're whining and complaining. This is 2 years where we're going to have to hear the noise and see the construction. We've been through it before. There are other locations, there are other possibilities. There are other possibilities for the location of the construction center. Let's find a solution together and avoid drawing out Act 250 hearings and appeals. This Development Review Committee can prevent this by requiring some solutions today. Are you ready for another one?
Yes, go ahead. Well, actually, can I ask you a quick question? Was there some specific inconsistency that you meant to draw our attention to between the table you produced and the traffic study?
Yeah, that there was an inconsistency in the number of vehicles along Maple Street.
The daily average vehicle count?
It was, for example, the intersection of Canal, I think it was 913 amount of cars in their study for build and no build, which is unlikely if there's going to be construction traffic coming in. The chart that you're looking for from Wyndham Regional was not very detailed, and there was no time to go in and get the details. I think that needs to be looked into. It was mostly included as something to look into. I'm not saying that we really understand it, we talk about it, it's just a vague thing. But the point to be made is that Wyndham Regional had some conflicting numbers, like 1,000, 3,000 vehicles using Maple Street. So if they're saying 1,000, 3,000 vehicles from, I think, 2006 to 2016, their studies, that's a big difference than what this simulation model is saying, even if it's just about the intersection or the Cherry Street access.
Okay. You can go ahead. Thank
I'm
you.
not sure that we talked about, but I'm not sure that we, I mean, it's just a chart, it's an Excel, it really has to be, like, we have to go over there and ask them for those studies.
I'm only ensuring that we understand what you're trying to tell us.
No,
that's
yeah, well, I'm only ensuring that you understand what I'm trying to say.
all. Okay. You can go ahead now.
All right. You have told us that it is not in your purview to consider the construction of this project. We disagree. The trailer is on the map. The trailer is on the map and part of the permit, as part of the permit. Of course, along with the trailer is the other business of construction, including loud machinery. Blasting, men yelling, and the very important issue of trucks, cranes, and cement mixers. We were promised a plan as to how delivery and construction trucks will maneuver safely without congestion and racket of beeping headlights and parking in front of homes. This is when we assumed the egress was part of the project, but having not seen it, we are assuming that maybe it's taken out of the project, it's not part of the project. But when we had the informational meeting, we were discussing all this activity and how it was going to happen with delivery trucks, tractor trailers coming in, and they block the egress to the parking lot, which is where the trailer is. So it's a mess. We talked about it, so we left that meeting assuming the egress was going to be used. It was suggested by BMH administration, the architect and Stevens Associates, that delivery trucks would park at Burger King and be radioed in correlation with the workers and the construction traffic. Somehow they were going to call people, the trucks in the morning and throughout the day, tractor trailers wait up at Burger King and then come in. This is barely a feasible scenario. How will the construction activity associated with the trailer look? Will the parking area be a place of storage? How will trucks and workers access the materials and the equipment? Where will they be driving into to get to the lot, to unload? Either the traffic or permit information provides answers to this. Can I clarify that in any way?
Yes.
I mean, would you
During your
like to
testimony, you said
clarify
it-
that, or do you get it?
I do get it. I do have one quick question. This was something I researched between our last meeting and this meeting, the issue of whether we have discretion to regulate construction. And it was something I struggled with as I went through the ordinances. Is there some legal authority you're aware of that authorizes us to look at construction? Or to limit it or make it the way that construction is conducted part of our permit?
No, we can't afford a lawyer to know that legally, but the common sense would say that if you have a trailer for construction on your map, there's a lot of things that go with the trailer, including that egress, which is not on the map. There's some conflicting points here. And so the argument is the trailer is included, and that means the construction. It has to, or else what's the trailer doing there?
Okay, thank you.
All right.
You can continue.
This RSG traffic study is extremely questionable. Not included in this study is construction activity. It has no image or mention of the parking lot egress. Does this mean it will not be used, or is it conveniently left out with hopes that no one will notice? In Act 250 hearings, the Richard Building neighbors were successful in pointing out the extremely poor engineering plan of this parking lot egress open for traffic. Problems with delivery and tractor trailer trucks blocking egress, a blind corner, driveway blockage, excessive speed were all evaluated at that time. Act 250 banned the use of this egress except for emergency trucks. It was closed. Act 250 said you cannot use this. So again, how are they going to get in the parking lot? Since there is no estimate of traffic influence from the parking lot egress, it is not part of the project. How then can cranes and cement trucks, etc., get to the trailer site? Will they use the front of the building? What is the plan? Will they use the hospital access intersection of Cherry Street? If this is the intent, the neighbors in that location need to be informed of the heavy traffic for the next 2 years. Large trucks cannot get under the canopies. There are currently no answers to these issues, and the Planning Commission should request them. There are sensible locations, and we can suggest them, which would not disturb people who want quality of life on their property, in their homes, and safety on the road. We are not saying we don't want to see the building. We are just saying that there's alternatives and there's lots of information missing. Further information is needed about the Maple Hospital access intersections because this site, whether the parking lot egress is used or not, will be used for construction traffic. See the intersection maps on page 7 through 13 of this study. Simulated traffic numbers seem too low for the current conditions. See pages 15 and 16 of the traffic study. Past Wyndham Regional studies of Maple Street, before all these studies that you have in front of you on that Excel, were before the bridge on Guilford Street, and there's been a lot of traffic added to Maple because of Guilford Street Bridge. The Wyndham studies have 3,564 vehicles for 14 days in 2010 on Maple Street. Canal and Southern Avenue have 1,863 count for 13 days in 2007. And Cherry and Cottage Street are 1,509 for 12 days in 2010. Like the noise study, this permit study assessment and representations are simulations. The traffic analysis software from TrafficWare creates, page 14, estimates congestion at the intersections during peak AM and PM hours. The Maple and Canal Street intersection is described as a long wait, or LOSE. This is a major traffic concern with heavy equipment, construction workers, and delivery trucks. In the simulation, the number of vehicles for Maple Street and BMH access intersection are the build and the no-build assessments. The no-build AM peak hour, consistently 13 vehicles from 2018 to 2023. So this is the permits noise study is saying that from 2018 to 2023, they anticipate 13 vehicles using that access. Again, the construction is not in there. Activity. PM peak hours are 11 vehicles for the build and no build from 2018 to 2023. No change throughout the years, even for the construction time of 2 years. The Canal Maple Street intersection estimations are the AM peak hours, build and no build. For the no build, 20 to 21 vehicles from 2018 to 23. Peak hours are 37 to 40, the same for the build and the no build. It doesn't change. So this means that the current estimates are 20 to 21 vehicles in the AM, 37 to 40 in the PM, whether the building, at this time period, and when the building is finished. And that remains the same throughout those years. From 2018 to 2023, the numbers are going to stay the same. And it doesn't include 2 years during that time when trucks will be coming from the 91 for wherever they get their construction. They will be using that intersection, which anybody who uses it, there are people, neighbors on Maple Street that don't use that intersection because it's crazy, it's dangerous. So this is very serious because these trucks, construction vehicles are not being added into this study. And of course, once again, there is no adjustment for 2 years of construction traffic. Where in this study's calculation are the estimations for 2 years of construction traffic? It is either missing or within the purview of the build scenario. If it is in the build scenario, then the statement made in the study, quote, the assessed conditions are consistent between no build and build scenarios projected for between 2018 and 2023, which I just mentioned. This indicates traffic construction is not considered in the build scenario either. So it's not considered in the build, it's not considered in the no build, it's not considered. It's as if there's not going to be traffic from the construction. So according to RSG, the construction traffic does not affect either the no build or the build from 2018 to 23. This is an impossible calculation during a major construction project. Citizens need to know the actual facts. The Maple and Canal intersection is no joke. It won't be safe during the 2-year construction time. Shockingly, the study states, Quote, "No significant increases in queuing are expected with the addition of projected generated traffic." This is impossible with major construction. We experienced the Richards Building construction and the effect on traffic and noise, and we know what will happen. The RSG noise study, back to that again, this is the final page. The current and projected noise, an unrealistic of 30 decibels for all the new machinery, will be consolidated for a total noise projection after the building is completed. There's a problem. We need accurate current noise level to do this. Previous studies cannot be used. They are in dispute over the honesty and how they were conducted. And this includes the May 2016 study, which is referred to several times in this permit for consolidated projections as Appendix D. Appendix D. Conveniently, Appendix D is omitted in this permit noise study. See page 8. We have requested this study for years. We requested it last meeting, and we expect it to be made available in this study as Appendix D. It's just missing. Final consideration. Please consider an 11-hour construction day for this for 2 years. There's no mentions of weekends off for neighbors. No one in this room would want to live under those conditions. Please require in writing a mutually agreed time frame for construction. It is very important that any agreement required by the hospital be in writing, including a plan for how construction traffic will be dealt with, especially concerning our truck and tractor trailer driver deliveries throughout 2 years. 2 years. There has to be a plan for the neighborhood. Are enough. We need an objective, fair noise and traffic studies conducted by outside source and approved by neighbors Thank you for your concern for citizens who look to your representation for assistance with concerns and issues of quality of life and property values affected by building projects. We can't count on a permit that is vague. Lights and windows, idling weekend deliveries are examples of lack of enforcement for rules now. Even town ordinances are ignored, such as delivery times at 6 o'clock, sometimes 6:30, but it seems to, in our discussions and looking at town ordinances, it seems that noise starts at 7 in the morning. Many hospitals that we researched during the Richards Building that were in neighborhoods throughout Connecticut, Massachusetts, they all start at 8 o'clock with their deliveries. Can you imagine being woken up at 6 o'clock? While supporting the staff at BMH, we have no reason to trust the administration of BMH. Here's another example of our experience. A sign with delivery hours disappeared from the end of the loading driveway. It stated delivery time, 6:30 to 5 o'clock weekdays. We have contested the 6:30 time, as most hospitals we researched, as I just told you. There was a time we had 7:30, and that was changed to 6:30. The town ordinance says 7. Covertly, this sign disappeared from the end of the loading dock driveway and was replaced with a smaller sign at the entrance door that said 6 o'clock deliveries. So the time changed. They took the sign down, put a very small sign up, and said 6 o'clock deliveries. We would like to see the sign put back. This brings up an important concern, the time frame of the working day for this project. During the construction, there will be chaos. No rules will be followed. There will be delivery and construction trucks vying for movement. This has been seen in past construction projects. We have seen trucks coming at 4 to 5 a.m. in the morning. I have gone outside in my pajamas to ask truck drivers to turn off lights shining in my window. This is my personal, I'm not sure that you all got the email for it, but I'll give you a copy. This is my personal paper. Why is this my job? In the Richards Building project, construction activity often happened into the evening hours. Blasting shook our homes. Trucks maneuvered into driveways. How can we plan our days without knowledge of a schedule? We could have guests and have to flee the property, as we have in the past, because no one can take the whine of the machinery of the construction noise. This is true, it really happens. It is up to you and this committee to enforce these things in writing, in this permit. It is not up to us to enforce the hospital. You have an opportunity here to do something for citizens who elect you. We have been here before with other projects, and our concerns were not considered. This was 10 years of this. I realize the hospital is an important entity, and you want to give them what they want. This can happen under considerations that work for the whole neighborhood, not just BMH. You have a responsibility to the people who live here. Please do the right thing and consider our notes and presentation, our requests, and the kind of punishment we have been living with the lack of control we have over the quality of our lives simply because BMH will not respond. Thompson House, which has also had noise problems, immediately, within minutes, go up on the roof, add the bolt that was making the noise, and fix the problem. He is always considerate. The lights are on, we ask him, he fixes it. It's a large contrast between the two buildings that exist in our neighborhood. It is up to you to determine this permit, it is up to you to determine this permit to be adjusted. The trailer site moved. New real-life studies be conducted. New real-life studies be conducted and observed by neighbors for accurate results. The RSG simulations are not factual, concrete data. They're a joke. They are deceptive, not real. It's up to you to stand up and say, honest real-time noise studies and traffic studies are required. There are other options to be considered for the trailer location. Let's do this together as a community. We are, as the community we are, because the hospital is located in a neighborhood. Over 10 years, BMH has never followed through with promises, never willingly fixed a problem. This construction noise will definitely increase noise. The building machines will increase noise. And we, instead of a drawn-out Act 250 hearings and appeals, resolution can be established here. And I'll leave you with that. Won't bore you with the rest.
Thank you. Now, I want to give you folks an opportunity to respond, but if other people have comments about sound, traffic, or lighting, I'd like you to make those public comments now so that the applicant has a majority to address them in a holistic way rather than back and forth and back and forth. So this isn't going to close the public comment, but I want to know if there are other people who came here to speak about lighting, sound, traffic. If so, I'd ask that you speak now. If not, I'm going to ask them to respond.
Mr. Chairman,
Sure.
for the sake of our fellow board members and myself, I tried to summarize what I felt this testimony covered, which were 4 areas. And it would just be great if we could be clear on that. There's issues of existing noise,
Right.
potential new noise issues, construction noise / traffic issues, and then also what was brought up of issues of delivery times.
So
Would that cover the 4 main areas?
And particularly how deliveries and traffic from the construction are going to be interacting, and whether the egress is open. That's a very important part. We don't know the answer to that. We left their meeting assuming that that would happen, but it's not in the plans.
Okay, I
Right.
just wanted to get an
Yeah, that's
overview.
great.
lighting.
Lighting, okay, thank you.
Landscaping.
Okay. That was just for me to get it all in my head.
And I want to be clear with both the members of the public and the applicant. Having now had the opportunity and some time to review both the zoning regulations and the applicable law, I can't see anything that gives us the authority to oversee your construction project. Not what you build, but how you build it, is what I mean by that. And, of course, other people on the board may have a different view than me. But the thing that caused me most particularly to conclude that was a review of figure it out, don't worry. Sometimes it takes me a little while, but I'll get there. I think it's it's section 322B. 3.22B. 3.22B is the noise ordinance. And if you folks have our ordinances handy, you can turn to that. And this is really one of the only places in the ordinances I noted a reference to construction. And there are two things about that section that I think you should consider. One is that 3.22B specifically accepts construction noise from the noise regulations. There's a graph there.
I don't have the right section.
I'll get it for you. And I'll just tell everybody. It says that there's an exception to noise requirements for the period of construction. And also, it only accords the Development Review Board the authority to grant an exception upward for noise. It doesn't seem to me to have the authority it doesn't seem to me to give us the authority to create a tighter, more restrictive standard than the sound ordinance that's already on the books.
And can we clarify, what ordinance, what is their, what is the restraint that BMH has as an existing building in their zoning district for how much noise they can produce?
I believe is it 55 and 60?
The noise ordinance is applied to machinery involved with new construction, so the existing machinery is covered by past permits,
Okay.
and the noise standards have varied over time.
But what I'm saying is because the hospital's in a certain zoning district, do they have to conform to a certain noise ordinance?
That's gonna be in the same ordinance that I'm referencing just below.
322B?
Yeah, I believe generally speaking, for an institutional permit, it's 60 during the day and 55 at night in that zone.
This has residential or undeveloped is 55 decibels from 7 AM to 10 PM, 45 decibels from 10 PM to 7 AM. But we have a commercial or institutional of 60 during that first, and then 50. And then there's industrial or agricultural, which is 70 or 60.
It's based on the receiving property, not the generating property.
Oh, I see.
And there are also guidelines there for how that should be measured.
So does that mean if you're in a residential property, the maximum received noise that wouldn't violate the ordinance would be 55 decibels from 7 AM to 10 PM?
Yes, and that would be an enforcement matter for Brian. They should report it to the zoning administrator if that is exceeded, and he would collect evidence, I think, according to guidelines there. Am I wrong about that?
For machinery involved with projects approved under this ordinance.
Okay. I'm just talking about if there were existing noise issues, there's already the structure within town, which is that there's the town noise ordinance.
That's true, and likewise, if we issue a permit, these will continue to apply, and if new machinery exceeds them, that will be the vehicle for enforcement, as I read it. So having said that, I want to give the applicant a chance to respond. Well, this is still somewhat fresh, but I wanted you to have my interpretation, which is not for everybody, it's just for me. But a great majority of that portion of the public comment had to do with construction issues, which may make sense, from a common sense, this is a concern for the neighboring community perspective, but we can't do something we don't have the legal authority to do. And as far as I'm concerned, it exceeds our legal authority to regulate the process of construction. So if you're just, I don't want you to respond to all of that on a granular level because of the time considerations and because many people came here to speak either to this application or other ones. But you can say whatever you want. I'm just trying to give you a little guidance here.
Sure. So, I'll start talking about noise. This is Rob Prohaska again. So just the thing to keep in mind on a granular level is that we are a hospital. We do have patients in the building. This will be in close proximity to inpatients, and so we too are concerned about noise that's generated and the times that are generated for the sake of our patients, and the fact that this will be done near our existing operating rooms. So just leave that at that. With regard to the noise survey of 2016 that was referenced many times there, that survey is a part of the public record. It was done as a request of Act 250. Stephanie Guile, the Act 250, the head of the district commission, witnessed it and was there. We actually asked that that be delayed until May. The project ended in wintertime to put up the sound barriers that were required. And I believe it was a 30-day after the project we were supposed to do the sound study. We spoke to her and said, well, that doesn't make a lot of sense since it was a chiller unit for air conditioning, so we purposely postponed it. And the only other thing I'll add to that is the fact that we did, to try to understand where certain noises were or how certain equipment affected the study, we did turn some equipment on and off during the study, and that is documented in the study.
Are you talking about the 2016
The
study?
2016 study, the last study that was done.
What was the condition for the one that was attached to your current application?
The one that's currently now is a
You didn't attach the
hypothetical
2016
analysis.
study, right?
Yeah.
The 2016 study was not attached to this application?
No,
Okay.
no.
Sorry.
But it was referred to just now, and that is a matter of record.
Yeah, I understand. So I apologize for interrupting. I just wanted to make sure I was clear on what we were talking about. What was the condition for the RSG study in connection with this application?
That is a study that's based on anticipated purchased equipment. We haven't finalized that yet,
Okay.
but that was,
And existing.
right, and existing. So the existing equipment that's there, plus engineers that are working on the mechanicals of this, based on what we intend to build right now, took some examples of equipment we might purchase, a particular brand, I believe was Daikin, and gave that information or those technical specifications to RSG for them to use in their analysis.
Okay. Do other members of the board have questions for the applicant or something that they want to discuss? Nobody? I apologize for taking an abrupt turn. I didn't take great notes from our landscaping discussion last time, and I don't remember it clearly. And I remember asking about having, shall we say, a more robust landscaping screen in the area here, and that there was a problem with that. I think maybe it was salt, but if you could just refresh my recollection
Right.
of the issues that arose.
I think there was a couple of things we discussed. One was some additional screening on Belmont Avenue, which I think is what we had discussed with Brian, and we've had some issues there with snow, piling up snow, and some restrictions therefore on being able to plant trees because we need places to stockpile snow for a couple of days before it gets taken away.
Right.
And then as far as Maple Street is concerned, I believe we have on the plan here some construction. During construction, we want to do some screening, and other than that, we'd be open to some additional screening, but we have added screening of mechanicals and equipment, landscaping-wise, on Maple Street over the last few years.
Are there similar limiting factors on Maple Street that will cause the same problems that the landscaping on Belmont encountered, or is it a wider swath that allows you to have some more
It's a
flexibility?
wider swath, but you'd have to be careful about what you do plant because it's on the north side. It's not a very sunny exposure, and you already have the maple trees there that further shade the ground there.
Okay. And I remember we had this discussion about the temperature of the lighting, and I think we agreed on 2700K seems to be
Yes,
an important number for the board, and you said that was not
not
a
an issue.
significant.
Right, it was the lighting, the actual lighting that's noted comes in 2700 K, so we were quite fine to specify
Right.
that temperature.
Right. There was some discussion of when it goes off and when it goes on, and I don't want to go back into this to figure that out. Can you just tell us what the plan is going to be?
Do you have that information?
So the lighting, specifically, we were talking about the lighting on the third and fourth floors, the two uppermost floors,
You're talking about inside lighting?
inside lighting.
As far as I'm concerned, we have no authority to regulate inside lighting, but I am concerned about light that is outside.
Does
There are
parking
some
lighting
units,
turn off?
correct?
Lot E?
Lot E, we could look into that, the lighting closest to Maple Street, we could look into turning off a couple of those lights down there if that was an issue, but that's with the existing, that's nothing we're adding
Oh, it's
as
not
part of
added?
this.
No.
It's not
No,
added.
it's
So there's
We're
no-
existing.
not modifying the parking lot
We're
at all
not-
there,
right,
except
exactly.
to
Okay, so
the
the-
stormwater.
I just want to make sure I'm clear. There's no new exterior lighting facing the Maple Street side? as
There
far
will
as
be
lighting?
building mounted lights over the exit doors, but they're not site lights, they're little fixtures that attach to the building
And shine down.
and shine down, but it's not a big pole with a sight light on it.
Are they on at all times? Are they motion sensor or whatever?
The building down lights,
We could put them on
they're just
either
for
a
emergency
light sensor,
exit,
yeah.
so,
So they could be on a photo
Or
eye,
something.
yeah.
Other people have questions here?
Is it all right to comment on something that's not part of our purview?
Well, we kind of shouldn't, but what,
It's
Give me an
interesting
idea.
to me to realize that it seems obvious that there has been issues over time, obviously. You know, it seems like that was the testimony from the abutter, is that there are things that aren't optimal. And it's interesting, I've driven past here a couple of times, you know, to have a sense of the space. And it just seems, you know, it seems a big issue, it's just simply the design. We have these Google Street View views, I guess. Did you folks see these? So it gives you sort of a sense, and it just simply seems that this service entrance is right across from, unfortunately, some people's homes. And then when you look at the map and you know about the traffic issues on Maple Street, and that the trees are in the wrong place. If these trees right across from Southern Avenue weren't there, and that could be an entrance, then you'd only have this sort of service entrance facing a street. And then if the town's stuck in a four-way stop sign there, you might actually slow down people coming either which way, and you'd stick more trees there, but it's not something we can require. Is that true, Mr. Chairman?
oh, for a four-way stop?
No, I mean, just in general, it doesn't have to do with their construction.
Yeah, if it's existing.
But I can see where the issues come from. I think it is just from driving by. Unfortunately, you have a service entrance that's right across from
If it's existing and they got a past permit.
some of the homes, but, you know.
Frankly, even if they violated the permit, we can't consider that. We can only consider the application before.
I just think it's just slight unfortunate nature of geography of that street in that area, so.
Well, there would
Just an
also,
observation.
if you moved it further down towards Southern Avenue, we also have elevation issues because there's a dip there, so there's those issues as well. And there are houses further down on Maple Street, so you'd be, in my opinion, pushing the impact further down toward Canal Street.
Yeah, I simply thought it would be interesting if one were to speculate about the idea of a service entrance directly across from Southern Avenue,
Mhm.
therefore also necessitating a four-way stop, you know?
Yep.
And again, it's just, I'm putting it out there as an idea, it's obviously not something we could tell you to do, and there may be many pre-existing conditions that don't allow it to happen.
Sure.
But it's just interesting when you see a color map like this, and thank you, that's all.
Other questions? Yes.
I guess a clarification, because I feel like the last 6 months I've spent my life at the Richards Building. I know I go in for the canopy, that little parking area that's by the canopy, you can't the road is blocked off. Is that the one that you were talking about? Okay, I just wanted to know about that, all right.
It's not on that map, we'll find it.
It's not
Right, I
on
think
this?
that'll be the construction entrance.
You can see it in the aerial picture, though, you can see the
That's the
vehicle
point,
tracks,
it's
so.
not on the map.
Ah,
It's not in the permit, it's not mentioned.
okay, but that's what you're referring to, yeah.
Is this it? This is right here. But it's also this view. This is from the street view. Correct.
Okay.
So I'd like to respond to that. Again, I'm Steve Cummings, and we've held a couple of neighbor meetings that some of the folks in the audience have attended, and we've been very clear that we were planning to use the access from Maple Street onto that parking lot for the laydown area. Rob, if you can point to where that is.
Absolutely.
We've been very clear with the neighbors, we've been very clear in the permit that we would plan to use that during the period of the construction, and then it would be closed again, other than for fire access, which is how it's used today. The other point I wanted to make was that, you know, in looking at why are we putting the building where we're putting it, the driving force is that the primary reason to build this building is new updated operating suites. Those have to be adjacent to the hospital building itself, the pre and post-op facilities. You can't build new operating rooms across the parking lot and wheel the patients across the parking lot. It has to be adjacent to the existing structures. So that's driving a lot of these constraints that make this a lot more challenging, but ultimately that's the goal, is to bring our operating suites up to the best practice standards. The other thing I wanted to point out was, and certainly I can see the concern with the traffic, with the extra people coming in to do construction, and we've been very clear with our construction management company that the vast majority of the construction workers would be parking off-site. We're negotiating with the folks down by for the gravel lot down behind Burger King, and what would happen is their foreman would drive them in with a pickup, drop the workers off, and then park the pickups off-site. So really, we're trying to minimize that traffic as much as possible. We also will likely be moving some of our employees to park off-site and shuttling them in from down that way as well, because we will be losing, for the period of the construction, most of the parking spaces that are in that lot today. Some of them are designated for patients, some of them are open to employees. So we are certainly looking at, for the entire period of the construction, making sure that we take care of the challenge of, you know, finding a place for the construction workers to conveniently get in and out with a minimal access. So if there's, you know, there's not going to be one vehicle for every construction worker, certainly. So I'd like to just point that out, that we are working pretty hard to try to minimize that impact, because we certainly recognize that, not only to the neighbors, but also to the patients that are trying to get in and out. I bet you've searched for a space when you go to the Richards building every now and then, but.
No, I take the medical bus.
Yeah,
And
so.
I'll tell you quite honestly, I'm concerned about getting there.
Yep. Well, we do meet the current standards for spaces by the amount of square footage that we have. We were careful to look at that with Stevens and Associates as well. But I just wanted to point out those couple of things as far as how we plan to access the site. We know you can't get cranes and big trucks underneath that canopy. I think it's an 11-foot clearance. So we certainly plan to use that lot.
I'd just like to add one other thing to what Steve mentioned about the location of the building. So after we built the Richards building, we did a site master plan, a hospital master plan, and we followed through on the various aspects of it, and this was clearly delineated in the master plan, which was shared with our neighbors at the time. There were a couple of things we're not going to do that are on the master plan, which is to build an inpatient unit, and we're going more toward outpatient procedures. However, having said that, this was clearly delineated right up front as being part of our master plan.
Right. And the last thing I'd like to add is we were also very clear in the last neighbor meeting that we will continue to have those meetings.
Yep.
We were also planning to set up a website to give regular updates to neighbors so that they know what we're doing, what's coming. If there's a somewhat longer day planned, for example, for a big construction or for a concrete pour, for example, but the typical day is not going to be 11 hours. And so we're really looking to be as open with our communication as possible with the neighbors.
Thank you for telling us that. Are there any questions from members of the board? I'd suggest a motion to enter deliberative session at this time.
Can I make a comment,
Sure.
response?
Yes. Well, just, Fred, if you could keep the camera up here, but if you wouldn't mind going to the microphone so we have the record, please.
Well, first of all, we never had any objection to the location of the building, so I don't know why they're talking about that. That wasn't an issue at all. And we did have an informational meeting in which we were actually told not very much. We came out of that meeting thinking we were gonna have one air conditioner added, and then reading this permit found out that there's lots of machines that we added. The informational meeting did talk about the egress, and we all talked about the egress, and then when we got together and we saw that it wasn't in the plan, that's where the confusion and question came in, because it's not in the plan. So then we were like, well, what is gonna happen to the egress? So if they're using the egress, then what does happen with the deliveries? They're air every single day, starting in the morning. And how are they gonna pull in trucks? They had a plan to park at Burger King and radio the deliveries down. They're not gonna do that for 2 years. They don't keep their word about anything. Mr. Prohaska just said that the noise study on May and also the previous study were saying that they turn the noises up and off and on. They turn the machines off and on, and that's why it was quieter. I was there during both studies. Stephanie Guile was there during the May 16th study. And we walked around, and we saw, and I said, that machine is not working. That machine is not on. The man who conducted the first study, before the May study, I sat there with him the whole time. And I said, do you know that that air blower, which is very loud, is not on at this time? Do you know that that's not on? As far as I could tell, and the neighbor next to me, was that there were only 3 machines on that day. That's the problem. If these studies aren't accurate, and you're basing all the information on this noise study on information that's not accurate, it's contested. There are other places for the trailer to go. They could use the front and keep the back open. They could put right in the front where the new building's gonna be. They could put a trailer in that parking lot and keep the other parking lot open. Many years ago, we pleaded that they put in a parking garage. They have the money now to do that. Put in a parking garage, and then you have all that space to build in the center of the campus. Not out in the neighborhoods, not molesting Belmont, not molesting Maple Street. There are other options. The trailer could go just before the canopy to the right of the Richards building. With the trailer on the other side, the back side of Thompson House. You can put the trailer there. You could circle off a little area there for construction. It can be just as easily brought to the site. You can make we looked up there the other day, you can make a little road if you take down an green electric generator, which is actually a very loud noise problem anyway. If you took that, you could have smaller trucks go around the canopy and have the trailer up to the right of the Richards building if you're standing on Maple Street. There are other possibilities. It doesn't have to be this way. So I guess we're not going to talk about the traffic. It's included in your permit, but it's not part of your purview to talk about traffic.
Construction traffic. Traffic is certainly within our purview.
Well,
particularly.
it's just mind-boggling that here's a study for 2018 to 2023 that does not include 2 years. It's mind-boggling that you can't address that. It's going to be insane. It's common sense. We know it because we live there. How can you not address that? That's it.
Thank you. Motion for deliberative session.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? 6 passes 6-0. It's 8:45. We're calling this meeting back to order. We went into deliberative session and came out of it unanimous with a couple of words I want to say before we vote on the application. Many of the issues here had to do with construction, and we appreciate the comments from the public on construction as well as from the applicant on construction. It's helpful for us to understand that on some level, but we find no authority for our own regulation of construction, and there's a list of things for us to review in a application in a permitted use area, which the hospital is. It's not in there. It's not anywhere else, even tangentially. And when we consider the logical side effects, if we were to consider that, it would increase the burden on applicants incredibly, not just in this application, but in every application. Every single applicant, in addition to having a site plan and some studies, would have to know exactly how every step of their construction is going to be conducted, when it will be conducted, how it will be conducted, and then if there were contingency issues, they would have to do it again, conceivably, if it was part of their permit. And our conclusion is that although being near construction is not fun, and we all agree with that on a common sense level. I was across the street from a construction site for 18 months, so was Mr. Annis. And that's something we understand as fellow citizens of this town. We can't find any legal justification for our development review board to regulate it under the ordinances we're charged with enforcing, enacting. That said, we did find a few areas where we felt there was the ability within our discretion to attempt to mitigate some areas of concern. And for that reason, I'd ask for a motion to approve application 2017-04.
You're at, I think, 2018.
2018-04, thank you. With a provision that there be dense landscaping on the Maple Street side, which must be approved by the zoning administrator, that exterior lights be 2700 Kelvin,
K.
2700 K lights with photo eye sensors so that they're off when not in use. That there be a no idling sign installed where necessary to avoid vehicles idling. Am I missing
That's it.
something? And with those provisions, the application would be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next application is 2018-15 Cheshire Oil and 111 Realty Association.
That's what you're here for.
Hey, bud. Yeah. I'll bring it.
We're gonna leave that.
Yeah, I'll bring it.
I don't even remember this.
Yeah.
When did they come this?
2 or 3 though. It's the one where the truck has to go all the way around so it doesn't have to back up. Or they did that for some weird accident. Remember that? Maybe you weren't here.
I wasn't here. Yeah, that's why I'm like.
Okay, so, application 2018-15, we have one board member who was not here for the first part of for the first meeting where you discussed this plan, so perhaps a little background on the project as well as why you're here today.
Sure. My name's Craig Miskovich. I'm an attorney at Downs, Rockland, Martin, and I represent the applicant, Cheshire Oil Company, LLC.
I'm Rob Hitchcock, SBE Associates out of the Keene office. Want me to go?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Right, just for a little orientation.
Could somebody close the door, please?
Putney Road, Black Mountain Road. There's a house here today, a house up here today. I believe the new police station is, I believe it's right over here. The proposal is for mini storage in 5 buildings. This is a climate controlled building. There's a little office. Stormwater detention on both sides. We came and we went through the approval process. We had some conditions of approval. Conditions were added to the zoning decision that we put sidewalk along Putney Road and sidewalk along Black Mountain Road. And that's what we're here for tonight.
Okay. And I understand you brought an agreement with you tonight.
We sent an agreement in.
Or you
I have
sent
not,
an agreement.
did not bring an agreement. I apologize.
Do you have
Okay.
copies of that?
I have a copy, one copy of,
Since some of us didn't get copies, if you could give us the short summary.
Sure.
Just so everybody understands what this agreement is and the import of it with respect to the.
No
original.
problem. And the good Catholics in the room have given me 60 seconds to get this done.
Wow, that's nice.
I'm going to try very hard.
Good, stay out of purgatory.
When the applicant reviewed the permit decision and saw the sidewalk requirements on Putney Road and Black Mountain Road, we started a conversation with the planning department about, a more, maybe coordinated effort to build the sidewalk in this area, especially because there are some anticipated improvements in connection with the police department and other improvements on Black Mountain Road. So the applicant and the planning department negotiated, in effect, a payment in lieu of building a sidewalk. And that payment would be deposited, given to the town, and then the town would have the opportunity to use those funds when the town constructed, or some other applicant possibly constructed, some sidewalk improvements on Black Mountain Road. And we wouldn't have what we occasionally have, if I remember correctly, kind of sidewalks to nowhere that don't really connect in a kind of a coordinated and cohesive fashion. So that's the request is to amend condition 19 to allow the applicant and the town to enter into a sidewalk contribution agreement. The applicant will deposit a sum of money with the town, and the town will use that to build the sidewalk someday.
Putney Road unchanged.
Putney Road unchanged.
Okay. Everybody understand?
So let's be clear. When did the DRB approve the original application?
I think it was probably 16, maybe 2016.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it covers that entire property?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
the development of the property is in the rear half with some drainage, stormwater swales on the, I guess that would be the west portion of the Putney Road, the portion that faces Putney Road.
2015.
My understanding would be, with the top of that map would be the highway essentially.
Yeah, up here.
Right.
So this land doesn't abut the highway?
It does
There's
not.
cemetery.
Quite a bit.
Oh,
The
there's a
cemetery.
yeah,
cemetery.
between
the cemetery is immediately above.
Yeah, there's a fair amount of
Okay.
land between here and the.
And then if I was the zoning administrator, when the DRB approved it as sort of the zoning conditions for Putney Road, is they needed to put sidewalk on both Black Mountain and Putney Road?
At that point, the sidewalk was a condition of the subdivision approval, because they made some boundary line adjustments. Since then, we've adopted new land use regulations, and sidewalks are a condition of site plan approval, not subdivision approval. So they're requesting that the Putney Road sidewalks be built as part of future site plan approvals for land development on Putney Road. The state is also planning to do a rebuild of Putney Road. Should that go forward, the state will build sidewalks.
Is that anywhere near where there's thinking of doing those roundabouts on Putney? Is
If I
that-
recall correctly, there is a roundabout up Black Mountain Road, yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
And then the secondary, there's a conflict between putting sidewalks on their property and existing stormwater, so that would be, if we put it on the opposite side.
Basically, they could build everything they wanna build, they have that permit. The consequence might be them building a bunch of sidewalks that are functionally useless in substantial measure.
I guess I have two questions.
Shoot.
We had a recent meeting where I think you had said, it might have been that Windsor Windsor Housing Trust, we talked about parking.
Mhm.
You said it would not make sense for us board to make approvals that were contingent on another town body making a decision. Do you follow me?
Is it true?
And I'm just kind of seeing that this is asking us to approve something that, like we've, you see what I'm trying to say?
The difference here, I think, is that they're putting 20 grand in the kitty for the town to do whatever it's gonna do.
That gets to my second question. I'm just saying is, as the chairman of this board, do you feel it would be appropriate for us to approve this, even though we don't have specific, that document you just showed me, even though there's no signatures on it, you would say,
If the board agrees that this makes more sense, it is certainly within our power to amend this
Right.
that way. I think it makes sense personally, because it's better to have a coordinated effort to build whatever it's
Yeah,
gonna
I
be
agree
built
with you
there,
on
than force them to do it on their own, and then,
I'm just the guy with a lot of
Yeah.
questions, so can I
Oh,
get to
yeah,
my
yeah.
second question?
yeah.
I don't know, I believe you might work with engineers. How much sidewalk will $20,000 buy?
I do not know.
Any sense?
We've got about 215 feet of frontage on Black Mountain Road. I spoke to Steve Barrett about whatever rule of thumb cost he has, and he says that he uses $100 a foot. That includes the granite curb, as well as the gravels underneath and the concrete sidewalk.
I guess then.
So we rounded it off.
Sure, I guess the other question then would be, how much sidewalk, when the DRB approved this original one, how much sidewalk was Cheshire Oil under the impression that they would have to build?
Yeah, it's a good question. I went back and reviewed the hearing minutes, and there wasn't any discussion of the sidewalk at the hearing. It was a condition granted in the decision, but it wasn't a topic of discussion either in the application or at the hearing. So I think that it caught us a bit by surprise, and that's why we started to have that conversation with the town about kind of a rational, implementation of sidewalks here, especially since there's planned redevelopment of Putney Road, and that's going to get torn up pretty soon.
I just get the perception that to me, that there may be the perception that the applicant was approved in 2015, and that applicant probably should have been very clear of how much sidewalk was expected of them, and that I'm wondering if it's worth us asking the question is, $20,000 into the kitty sounds good, but is it an equivalent based on what they were required
I
under
don't
the
think it's our
code?
purview to do that. It's not our purview to decide that.
But if we decide to
Hold on, let
disregard.
Brian respond, trust me, that's probably the best idea.
So, the sidewalk requirement was just something that plunked out automatically as part of subdivision approval, even though, the subdivision really just tidied up some property lines that aren't actually adjacent to Putney Road. I think from the beginning, it's been the department feeling that it's an irrational requirement and probably a waste of money, because in all likelihood, any sidewalk on Putney Road would be torn up. What we're proposing reflects the actual frontage on the street, which is the only frontage of this project is on Black Mountain Road. And this also allows us to coordinate and come up with additional money to make a useful sidewalk from Putney Road up to the police station, which is a town building.
And I think to further answer your question, they applied with an application that explained what the site plan was gonna be.
Okay.
And then we said, well, the ordinance says you have to have this sidewalk, so we're gonna add this condition because you gotta follow the ordinance. And that's what created the situation in the first place. It was not for lack of information, but because we had to follow a fairly regimented procedure under the last version of the ordinance that was applicable.
This is not the first time that if something has been amended. I mean, I've been on the DRB for a long time, and we've done this before. Where something has been amended.
Which entity of the town decided to, what's the agreement? I didn't see who's agreeing with whom.
Well, the agreement would be with the town of Brattleboro. The terms were negotiated with the planning department, and I believe Steve Barrett was involved in those negotiations as well, so the public works department as well.
I believe the town manager's office.
Okay, and that's probably, and I'm not familiar with your conversation and conditioning your decisions on the decisions of other boards. I think the distinction here is that those boards, the other instrumentalities of the town have already negotiated the terms. It's not, there's no other negotiation to occur. Once we get approval from you, we'll just sign the agreement.
Any other questions or comments from the board?
One other comment, if not meant to be discussed tonight, but the Act 250 folks, April Hensel at the District 2 Environmental Commission, has let us know that this area is a sensitive area for native artifacts. So what will likely occur as part of the Act 250 process is once the snow melts, if it melts, and the field dries, we will, as part of that Act 250 condition, plow and
Plow and harrow. And then wait for a rain.
So plow and harrow the field, and then do an analysis. That's going to push our application well into the spring and summer, which is probably means we're not going to be in compliance with the expiration date on your current approval. And I had a brief conversation with Brian, so I think what we'll do is rewarn another hearing in order to get an extension to accommodate those Act 250 conditions.
Are there any members of the public who came here to speak to this application? I don't think we need a deliberative session for this. Are we all in accord that this makes sense?
Yeah.
Ian?
They say trust but verify, so if planning department and public works seem like it's a good idea and it's a coordinated effort, then
Okay.
I won't stand in the way of it.
Okay, so I'll take,
The decision is conditioned on the town finalizing.
Yeah.
Okay.
so let's have a motion to approve application 2018-15.
I so move.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Application passes 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, application 2018-10, St. Michael's Parish.
Yep.
I should say St. Michael's Parish Charitable Trust. Just give us one moment, please, okay? I did the same thing. I did the same thing. Everybody ready? Okay, 2018-10, could you please tell us about your project and just identify who you are, please?
I'm Father Justin Baker, the pastor at St. Michael's.
Doug Cleveland.
Jim Mellish.
Okay. And can you tell us about your project, please?
Yes, we currently have a building over on Walnut Street, and we'd like to reduce the size of the building as far as height, dropping it down to one level. We'd like to remove the back half of the building completely, and even down to the cement foundation, and then restore it in the exact same location that it is now, and just make it one level versus 3 floors like it currently is. You might be familiar, it was the former BMC building. They used it for a bunch of years, and we basically all we're going to do is run a soup kitchen out of it. We currently have. The soup kitchen operated out for 35 years at a 650 square feet, and we'd like to increase that to 2,200 square feet so we can serve the community better with the expanded area.
Okay. Do I correctly understand it's gonna go back slightly more when it's,
We're gonna step it back. The building's gonna go a little bit back, but there's already the fire escape there and the stairway for the back section to exit, so we're not going any further than that.
okay. One of the questions was about what the height is gonna be. I understand it's going from 2 to 1 stories, but
Right.
is it just gonna be a flat 10-foot
No,
height?
it's gonna be, we're gonna go up 8 feet, after we put the foundation in. The walls are gonna be 8 feet up, then we're gonna put trusses on top of it, so it's gonna have a pitched roof on it. So you're looking about 6 more feet after that.
So the center's gonna be
So you're gonna look
14,
about 14 feet to the highest point of it.
Okay. So Brian, one of the things that was suggested in the staff memo was a fenestration pattern. And I think that means windows. Have you guys seen the staff memo, so you know what I'm talking about? There was a memo from the planning staff, and it said that you've got a 2-story minimum height requirement in this district,
Mm-hmm.
but that we can essentially move forward if the addition is consistent with the character of the district. And so the suggestion from staff was that the roof line be a hip or gable roof, which it sounds like you already are doing. And that the window pattern, I think what they're getting at is that the window pattern would be similar to the BMC building, the original building.
Yes, that's what we're trying to match it with the front part of the building, is what
Okay.
we're gonna do. So that it stays the same character as the whole area is right now.
Okay,
The front part of the building's gonna stay, which is gonna be the 2-story part of it.
sure,
And,
totally understood.
Yeah,
Okay, so you're gonna have a gable roof that's about 14 feet, and you're gonna have windows that are about the same size and about the same frequency as the building follows along?
right,
Okay.
yep.
Is there any reason you can't have a bicycle rack? We're required to
No.
make you put one
If
there
you
unless
need
you
one,
can give us
we
a
can
really
put
good
one.
reason not to. Okay.
Well, I think there's one at the school anyway, so.
Move it over.
Yeah,
Move it 10
We'll
feet.
move it over.
Sorry, what'd you say?
Non-conforming light over the front door that needs to go on.
Oh, you got a non-conforming light over the front door.
Okay, that light there was, what we're gonna do is, with the, Efficiency Vermont, Gary Swinner, we're gonna put, lighting in that area and stuff that will,
I
meet the,
think as long as it's a downward cast LED,
Yeah,
it'll
that's what
conform,
we're-
right? Yeah, so,
so that's where we're gonna be making changes on that part of it and stuff.
okay.
I'll bring up my bugbear, which is, I think it's recommended a color temperature between 2,700 and 3,000 K. I want to emphasize, it's great you
Yeah.
talked to Efficiency Vermont. I think you'll find emotionally the 2,700 K is a much warmer light. It's much like the tungsten of old, much warmer than
Right.
these fluorescents. So again,
Like here,
I think when we do these permits, we're doing 2,700 to 3,000, but I would always just recommend, that
27.
you may find, for your own sake, that you prefer that warmer 2,700. I think it has a very it's definitely an emotional response people will have to like.
It's on the idea the higher pressure sodium used to be, with your LEDs,
Okay.
and stuff it down to 27. Yeah.
So you've gotta have a tree just based on the frontage, we've gotta make that a condition.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no information here about landscaping, which is fine, but there needs to be some landscaping. And what we generally do here is just say landscaping, a plan that's agreeable with the zoning administrator. And so you just let him know what you're gonna plant on the streetscape, and he'll tell you if it's
Okay.
okay.
Sure.
Um, Is there any plan to have new signage?
We have a new sign there right now that was just put in, or was it about 2 years ago?
Uh-huh,
So we're looking at keeping that same sign.
fine. We understand there's a couple dry wells on the property. How big are they? Do you know?
I didn't really put those in. Basin Brothers did all the construction on those.
What's the area that's draining into them? What's the size approximately? You don't have to give me the
We-
exact measurement.
Of the,
The area that's draining into the dry wells.
boy,
That's a parking lot, right?
yeah, it goes right into the parking lot area right there and
I
stuff.
mean,
you know,
even,
so-
even if you give me, the approximate length and
You're
width.
looking about, let's see, about total of 58 feet total on the back side of it. So it would come off the roof onto the, what we'd look at is that we'd go right into the, we'd put a drainage system in so that so you'd have bank run gravel on the side of the building, and then it'd run into a dry well on the back side of the building, is what we were
Okay.
planning on doing with it.
Okay. Have there been any issues with water pooling or other problems draining with the current setup as it is?
No, see, everything goes right out to the street right now, the way
Okay.
through the parking lot and everything,
Okay,
so.
okay. So I think we'd likely say some sort of stormwater system approved by the zoning administrator. You don't
Mhm.
have to give us the exact specifications now, but you'll need to show him what you're doing before you do
Sure.
it. That's really everything that I have. Does anybody have questions, concerns? And then we'll put a few conditions in for the firefighters to have a Knox box,
Mhm.
to give a permit to the Division of Fire Safety to make sure that fire apparatus can gain access to the site during construction. Fire alarms need to be connected to a municipal system. Is there any reason you couldn't use a master electrical box?
No.
Okay. Any questions about what I just said?
Master electrical box?
I don't know what that means, but it's in
I
there.
think they might actually be talking about asking for one for the entire campus, so it's probably something that should
Oh,
negotiate with
oh.
the fire department, provide a
Fire alarm?
approval solution.
This
We-
is a memo from,
This is the suggestions from the fire department. You're saying they want to have this all on one,
Master fire panel.
Right, that's what, we're gonna
Oh,
put a
that's
fire
what
alarm
that is?
system
Yeah.
in the whole building for that.
Why didn't you write master
That's what we're gonna do.
Thanks. Yes.
It's not written on, but that's what it's.
Okay. That's what we get. Experts here. All right, are there any members of the public who wish to speak to this application?
I think they're all fans.
They're all- That's fine. That's fine. Well, we appreciate your patience tonight. This has been a pretty late night. I think that we can have a motion, unless there's any further discussion, to approve the permit, provided that there be a bike rack, a gable roof or a hip roof, Windows that are approximately the same as the pattern for the current DMC building. A one-street tree and landscaping, which is approved by the zoning administrator. A stormwater drainage system approved by the zoning administrator. Replacement of the current exterior light is non-conforming with a downward casting 2700K light. And the proposals from the fire department with the last proposal clarified not to be an electric master box, but to refer to a master fire panel,
Okay.
along with the Knox box submission of the permit application to the Division of Fire Safety, ensuring that all fire apparatuses can gain access during construction, and that the fire alarm be connected to the municipal system. I'm just saying what's.
No, what is it?
Oh, what's a
Knox
Knox
box?
box?
It's a centralized key that the fire department has a key to any building in Brattleboro. They open that box, there's keys to the building, so they don't have to smash the door down.
Thank you.
Yeah, we have them on all the other buildings, so.
It's in everybody's best interest.
Yes.
So that being said,
So moved.
so moved.
Second.
Second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you for waiting.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Granted. That's rare. That's rare. Motion to adjourn? Second? Yeah. You move? Okay. Second? Sure. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0.